The Charlotte Ledger Podcast is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network.
This episode of the Charlotte Ledger Podcast is sponsored by Childcare Search. Finding childcare is more than checking a box. It's peace of mind. For over 40 years, Childcare Search, a service of Childcare Resources Incorporated, has helped families find safe, nurturing, quality childcare options. Their free referral service connects you to licensed programs that fit your family's needs. Visit findchildcarenc.org or call 1-888-600-1685 to talk to a childcare navigator today.
Welcome to the Charlotte Ledger Podcast. I'm Steve Dunn. To find out more about the Charlotte Ledger, visit thecharlotteledger.com. I'm joined today by Susan Evren, Executive Director of the Go Jen Go Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing critical financial assistance to local individuals and families in the greater Charlotte area who are battling breast cancer. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
The Go Jen Go Foundation was started and inspired by Jen Pagani. Tell me about her.
Well, Jen Pagani, she was an amazing woman, a two-time Ironman athlete, and, a local mom who was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 37. It was right after the birth of her second son. And she had an outpouring of support. People were providing meals and, helping her. And it was so much that people didn't even know what to do. So they started giving her gift cards. And what Jen turned around and did was pass those gift cards out to other patients in the infusion room because she heard that they didn't have transportation to treatment or they didn't have childcare or something like that. So she wanted to make sure that other individuals were receiving assistance while they were going through a breast cancer treatment and recovery. So she was just, a regular woman here in the Charlotte area who had the unfortunate, breast cancer diagnosis, fought for 6.5 years. And when she passed, we've just kept the foundation going, and Jen's legacy is continuing on.
So she gets this awful diagnosis, this surprising, and at a surprising moment in her life. She's just had a child. And so life has thrown her for a loop, and she finds herself sitting next to these other patients and while she's receiving her treatment. And she hears them talk about the struggles that they're going through with just basic stuff like groceries and utilities, things where maybe she is in a better position than some. And it starts the giving that continues to this day begins with her direct person to person, right?
Yes, 100%. She would have pulled a dollar bill out of her pocket and given it to someone else. And, it just goes to show the fortitude that she had and the strength that she fought for 6.5 years. She went through 19 different regimens of treatments and, really exhausted all options for her family. She wanted her boys to remember her. And wow, are they, able to, remember her fondly because of the person that she was, the mom that she was, and this legacy that just continues to grow here in Charlotte. And the boys, whenever they can, are a part of the foundation's events and everything. So it continues to be, part of their lives as well.
And you're directly helping people with their everyday needs.
Yes.
It's quite something to think that when you're struggling with breast cancer, a challenge all its own, but the rest of life doesn't just stop, right?
Exactly.
You still got to pay your power bill and stuff like that.
Right. And we're helping people stay in their homes. People are getting eviction notices and we're able to turn around funding to them within a day, sometimes less if it's that needed. I've driven payments to apartment complexes because that was part of what Jen wanted, was for no one to suffer or have a barrier to getting well. We've helped, turn the lights back on and put groceries on the table, make sure that people are able to get where they need to be, that their children are taken care of, and, just really trying to keep things as normal as possible when you're going through something so traumatic that affects your mental health, your emotional health. It just affects everything. And it's surprising, some people think, well, you're just helping people that are low income, but, a cancer diagnosis can, put anybody through a loop. Whether you're, employed, if you have to miss work, that can really affect your ability to stay on top of your bills.
Healthcare needs can change your financial situation for sure. And I know that delivering the money, and this is how it works, right? You're literally delivering money to people who need it in the moment, right?
Right, yes.
And I imagine that not only does that infusion of funding at a critical time make a huge difference in people's lives, but I imagine also simply the fact that someone cares and that someone is reaching out is also an important part of their recovery and their carrying on.
Definitely. I've heard that from individuals that we've supported, is that, you were the only foundation that responded to us, and you actually followed through, and you continue to reach out after the fact to see how we're doing and if we need additional assistance, and then starting to invite them to different social and educational events that we're able to provide for our grantees now.
That leads me to my next question, which is how you find the people that you serve. It sounds like there's a way that people can reach out to you directly through the website, but I'll bet you find some folks who don't even know you exist.
Yes, that's part of the challenge of, we were small staff for a while. I was just able to hire a couple of people last year. So we're growing, and we do have the application directly on our website, but a lot of our applications come from nurse navigators and social workers that are in the hospitals and working directly with the patients. So about 70% of our applications are referrals. And that's always great, because then we know there's someone there kind of holding the patient's hand and helping them navigate all of the different options and resources within Charlotte, because Go Jen Go is one aspect that we can help, maybe pay utilities, and then another foundation or resource could help with, transportation. And I feel like together we can really inject a lot of support to that one patient. So it's not just one, piecemeal. It's all together. You're really making a difference.
Well, I wondered if it was mostly one-off donations or whether you have sort of an ongoing relationship with the patients.
So what we do is monthly stipends for the length of their treatment. So it could be, it really depends on when they find us. Sometimes they're almost done with treatment, and so it might be just a couple of months. Other times it's 6 months to start, and then there's the potential to extend that. We really don't have a limitation as far as you have to wait a year or anything to reapply. It's a nurse navigator can reach out and say a patient's had to step back from treatment because of side effects, and it's going to extend 2 months, and no question we're going to help them throughout that time.
How do you get the money? Where does the money come from? You got grants, you do fundraisers. How do you do it?
Yes. So we have amazing individuals that support us, but our main fundraiser is our Run Jen Run 5K, which we host in South Park at Symphony Park. And that's always in March, which is our primary fundraiser. We had almost 1,200 individuals this past year, and an amazing, beautiful day. And so that really brings in a lot of funding. We also are super fortunate to be the beneficiary of some amazing events here in the Charlotte area. So events like All In to Fight Cancer, 24 Hours of Booty, Dancing with the Stars of Charlotte. Those are other organizations that host events, and we are grateful to receive funding from that event. And then, like I said, just individuals. Charlotte, I feel, is a very giving city, and it's surprising, how much of the funding is just individual based.
Jen Pagani herself, inspiration for the organization. Her spirit lives on through her family and through the organization, but she also, part of her legacy is some writing that she did on the Caring Bridge website. What is the Caring Bridge website?
So Caring Bridge is really where a patient or a caregiver of the patient can post information about how things are going. So it really helps protect, text messages and, calls and everything. It gives
if you're the patient, like people love you and they want to know how you're doing.
Right.
But if you're the patient, sometimes you could be in a situation where you got to tell the same story like 100 times.
Exactly.
Right?
And so it's really just an opportunity to push that information out to the masses. And it's a place that people can go to and get that information and know that, you kind of protect the patient from having to answer the same thing over and over again. So I've been on several CaringBridge patient pages, and you get an email notification. And so you can just log in and check and see how they're doing. And
Jen Pagani, among her many gifts, had a flair for writing.
She sure did.
She reflected on her experience, and her writings have been turned into a book, right?
Yes. Her parents were able to have the book published after she passed. And so I look upon that book many times, especially before I'm going to speak at an event. And I want to always have Jen be a part of what I'm talking about, because this is her foundation, and I'm grateful to be able to be the voice for her. But I always want to look back and see, thoughts that she had about the foundation while she was alive. There was a point where she was over the moon excited about supporting 2 families a month. And just this past April, we are supporting 102. So you can see where we've come from, and, the amazing things that she created just as her individual self, and where we've been able to get to with, out of those 102 families, it is 100 women and 2 men that we are supporting. So I know there's still people out there that don't know about us. So it's amazing, the growth, but also I feel like there's still so much potential for us to locate people that haven't heard about us yet.
Well, everyone listening to the sound of our voice knows about you now. And if they want more information about you, what's the best way to learn more?
Sure. Our website, gojengo.org, is a great place to see what we're up to, events, volunteer opportunities, just ways to get involved. Follow us on social. That's a great opportunity as well. We're super busy and posting quite a bit, all the different activities and, stories about the patients that we're able to support. It's really just heartwarming to know that we're able to help people through something so difficult.
It's an amazing thing, providing assistance direct. At the same time, you're making a direct impact. You're having a personal relationship. But one of the consequences of that is that you experience a lot of loss. And you mentioned that you've been on the CaringBridge website probably more times than you would like. And on the surface, it seems like there would be a lot of sadness associated with that. Yes. But I wonder if also the strength that you observe and the perseverance that you see and the sharing of the experience of loss with others gives you a perspective on the joy of life.
100%. I will say that, every time we hear about a loss, it's heartbreaking. Honestly, every time I read an application, there's a little bit of heartbreak to know that someone's going through something. And, a lot of times it's more than just the breast cancer diagnosis. Life, can throw a lot of things our way. And we have patients that, have children that struggle with different things and are, they're already stretched thin. But actually within the past 2 months, we've learned of 2 patients that have passed. And, we reach out to the families and we try to provide a little extra funding just to support the expense of funerals and that sort of thing, and to let them know that we're still with them, that their loved one is part of the Go Jen Go family. But I will say there is sadness, but trying to gather the strength and know that the patient did everything they could to stay strong, and that we're going to keep doing the work that we do in their memory. And, it's just one additional, kind of lighting the fire in me to just keep doing what we're doing to help the families that are in need.
Jen Pagani herself was an athlete. You mentioned that she was an Ironman competitor, which is, Ironman is a triathlon, right?
Yes.
Like a very long triathlon. Yes. Okay. And so she's, in her life, she was swimming, running, and riding bicycles very long distances at a high rate of speed. And it sounds like the big fundraiser is the 5K in South Park in March. And so there's a connection, right, between athletics and the name, Go Jen Go, right?
Yes,
it's easy to imagine a person, running a race. And I imagine that it's a pretty easy analogy to the experience of persevering through a course of treatment.
Yes, definitely. And Jen was able to be at the very first Run Jen Run 5K back in 2013. And it actually snowed that day. And she loved snow. So there's photos of her capturing snowflakes on her tongue and just the joy that she felt on that day. And, this past year we had our 13th race. And as we've grown, we develop and get new ideas for each race. And in the past few races, we've really focused on bringing out the grantees that we're supporting, inviting them to be a part of it. And watching these women and hearing them say, I am going to walk this entire 3.1. And to watch them come through and raise their arms as they cross the finish line and just know the multitude of feelings that they're experiencing and that we were able to be a part of that and to help give them that opportunity to feel like I've accomplished this, I can do this. It's an amazing thing to see. And so we have the 5K and we also have a fun run, so the 1 miler. So for individuals that aren't able to go that full 5K distance, we have opportunities. And then we also work with Speed for Need. They have chariots and runners that will push the individual throughout the race. And then we've actually had people that have done that, and then they'll make sure that they stop before the finish line. They'll get up out of the chair, and then they will walk across the finish line on their own. And so I was fortunate to be able to push one of our grantees during one of our races a few years ago, and wow. I mean, I'm a runner anyway, but like to do that and to help someone else have that experience, it was absolutely amazing.
We'll be right back to the conversation, but first, this episode of the Charlotte Ledger podcast is presented by Child Care Search, Charlotte's trusted child care guidance for families.
Well, you're a runner yourself, and so you can appreciate the fulfillment and the achievement of crossing that finish line at any level,
right.
Whether somebody's doing a fun run or more along the lines of what you do, which is 50 Ks at high altitudes. So as I am reading your bio, I see that it's not just 50 Ks, but it's 50 Ks at high altitudes. So obviously there is an aspect of you that intentionally in your own running sort of maximizes for difficulty, right?
Yes.
What's behind that?
I think really it's challenging myself to try to do more than what I think I can do. The beauty of the areas that I get to see when I'm doing these events, absolutely just breathtaking. And so kind of the joy of exploring. And
what are we talking about? Where are these places?
Like,
what are what kind of altitudes and where around the world are these?
So I've been out to Utah a couple of times. Last one that I did out there was in Snowbird. I think it was like 11,500 top elevation. So that was fun. That was in July. So it ended up getting a little bit hot. But
when you say fun, fun means different things to different people.
It does.
And I'm going to assume that what you mean by that is that it was rewarding in the end to be finished, but
yes.
that it may have been a challenge along the way. And I wonder in those moments where you have to overcome when your brain is telling you that you should really not be doing this and you have to keep pushing through.
Yes.
It's similar to it's a ready comparison to challenges that we all go through in different ways in our lives, including particularly people who are in treatment for breast cancer.
Yes. I often think about those that can't go out and do these things. And so that gives me strength as I think about the people that I'm doing this for, like, okay, so my friend who's a runner diagnosed with breast cancer, very young, and, had to stop. And so it was like, every time I'm out, I'm like, this run's for you, and just knowing what they're going through, it puts perspective about, yes, I'm feeling pain right now, but I'm going to get through it, and just to have that push forward.
I'm sure you've made it a bunch of times and you crossed the finish line and you achieved your goal. Have you ever failed?
Yes.
What do you take from that?
I take that it wasn't my day. Anytime you get up and you're going to do an event,
and what does it mean to fail? Like not finishing?
Yeah. Not finishing within like a time limit that is, imposed upon by the event. But I always look at it as, well, I'll just come back and I'll try again. Like it wasn't my day. Actually in Utah, I made it 20 miles and missed a cutoff for one of the races. And
for perspective here, this is a 50K?
Yes.
Which is 30 miles or 31 miles. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So got to the 20-mile mark and, for the safety of participants, they have set time limits and so I had missed that. But I looked back at those 20 miles and I'm like, wow, like I crossed over a snow covered mountain and hiked, up this just amazing trail and had all of the experiences. Like you don't want to look back at what you've accomplished and say, well, I didn't, go the full distance. It's like, no, I did 20 miles, and a lot of it is the perspective that I get when all my running buddies back in Charlotte are like, wow, you did 20 miles in, Utah. And I'm like, well, yeah. And, you kind of have to realize, yes, I did do that. And
you're not the best runner in the world.
Right.
There's always somebody better, right? And
right.
So the race, it's really, the competition is really just with yourself, right?
Yes. Oh, for sure. Yes. It's, how do you feel that day? How does your body respond? And actually in Utah, I had a little bit of elevation, the altitude sickness. So that kind of threw a little. Have you
considered doing 50Ks at normal altitudes? Maybe.
Yes.
You dial down the difficulty at least a little bit.
Yes.
Well, you have been in Charlotte now for 20 years. You came from Wilmington, and you have what some might consider to be the surprising experience of now going to the beach more than you did when you lived at the beach. How does that happen?
Well, when I lived in Wilmington, it was more about being on the water. So I'd find a way to get to the water and then go explore from there. And there's a spot called Masonboro Island. And so, you'd pop the boat there and, swim over. But as far as like Wrightsville Beach, that was really like wintertime, when the tourists aren't there. And so not necessarily laying out on the sand, but just enjoying the ocean. So now I love being in Charlotte because I can't decide if I'm more of a beach girl or a mountain girl. And I guess right now I'm just a city girl.
Well, you've been here long enough to have seen a lot of changes in Charlotte. I mean, you've been doing this for a while now. You've been involved in other organizations over the course of your career. Mm-hmm. You're now the executive director of the Go Jen Go Foundation. You've been honored by the Charlotte Ledger as a winner of its 40 over 40 award. Being over 40 is wonderful in many ways, but usually that birthday is kind of a milestone, right? It's sort of all the round numbers kind of stand out, but I think 40 in particular, I think when I turned 30, I felt like I couldn't act like a kid anymore. And I think when I turned 40, I started feeling like, okay, this is getting real now. And there's ups and downs and pros and cons. You might not be the athlete that you once were. I don't know if the 50Ks are coming easier or harder now. But the fact that you're still running them is amazing. But I wonder, as you reflect on this time of life, what do you think about the journey that you've taken and what lies ahead for you?
Honestly, I still feel like a kid on the inside. And when I hear people talk, I was introduced as a notable leader a couple of weeks ago, and I did like a double take. And so sometimes I still feel like a kid, doing big adult things, which I think is fine because I find the joy in the work that I do. Things that I've learned over the years is to not take myself so seriously. Like when I'm speaking at an event, I used to write everything out, be like, it has to be perfect. And I finally realized a handful of years ago that no one else knows what I was planning to say. So I can say whatever I want and it'll be like, that's what she was going to say. So just, learning different things, being confident in the knowledge that you have about the work that you do. I think the passion is evident, and that's a lot of what you want to see in someone is that you're passionate about the work that you do, that you believe in it, and others will believe in you and what you do. But I often feel just amazed that I'm in this role, honestly. And I know everyone will tell me, well, you put in the work. And I'm like, I just kind of keep my head down and I make sure that these people that are in need are getting help. And I'm looking for the next person that needs Go Jen Go in their life.
Well, that's a great place to leave it. Thank you so much, Susan Evren, for being with me on the Charlotte Ledger podcast.
Thank you.
That's it for today. Thanks for listening. This episode was produced by Lindsay Banks. You can find out more about the Charlotte Ledger by visiting thecharlotteledger.com.
This episode of the Charlotte Ledger podcast was presented by Child Care Search, helping families find safe, quality childcare with free referrals and support every step of the way.
QueenCityPodcastNetwork.com.